Good evening. I'm Mary Holt, current president of the Chebeague Island Historical Society. Welcome and thank you for joining us on Zoom for the Historical Society's Ellsworth Miller Memorial Lecture Series, established by Cap Leonard. The Board of Trustees offers sincere thanks to Cap for his continued support of the lecture series. Also worthy of great appreciation is our Zoom facilitator, Richard Hackel, who is also our lecturer this evening. Those who wish to support the efforts of the Historical Society may donate online at chebeaguehistory.com. Before commencing with the lecture, I wish to acknowledge and honor the Indigenous people who were first to inhabit Chebeague, forage its fields and forests, and fish its waters. Questions relative to the lecture will be addressed following the lecture. Please type questions in the chat box and select to everyone. As noted previously, tonight's lecture, Chebeague Island Landscape Photography, will be delivered by photographer and year-round resident Richard Hackel, who began photographing Chebeague's landscapes in 2000, when he began visiting the island for a short 2 weeks each summer. Richard's hope is to create images that let people see the landscape in a new way and to appreciate a viewpoint they may have initially missed. At this time, it is my great pleasure to introduce Richard.
Great. Thank you, Mary. You need to turn down your volume. We're in the same room. There you go. No, your volume's still coming through. Uh-oh, technical glitch. Hold on a second, everybody. That should do it. Okay, we're back. Yay. And make sure you let people in. Okay. Good evening. Hi. Welcome. I'm so glad to see everybody here. This is really wonderful to have you here, and I'm really happy to share this have this opportunity to share my work with you and talk a little bit about how and why and where and how I do my work in photography. How I got interested in photography, and some of the various paths I went through to get here to be lucky enough to live here full time on Chebeague now. It's so I'm gonna now share my screen. There we go. There. Here we go. Huh?
Just keep going.
Okay. So yeah, so I began taking pictures. I'm not sure if I was a photographer yet, but began taking pictures when I was 13, and I had my father's camera, and I looked up how to develop film, and I saw that was interesting, and was like, wow, this is really cool. I really like doing this. And so right away, I was hooked on photography, and that's what you kind of said back then. But I kept doing it. I kept pursuing photography all through high school and college. I worked on all the yearbooks I could and was photography editor, and just sort of learned the process by doing that. Working on the yearbook really forced me to stay in the darkroom and learn how to process film and become technically adept at the procedure. Meanwhile, sort of learning my style for photography, which especially in the early days was all about, to me, it was like capturing this moment. And I kept doing it, and I kept finding these moments that I wasn't expecting to see. Just coincidences of light or shadow or somebody stooping over, and just the form and the form it would take. And that's what I was looking for. I wasn't always looking for such a formal compositional thing in the viewfinder. I just thought it shows up later. It's something that I find later. If I think and wait too much, it goes away. Oh, just missed it. And if I don't do that, it doesn't have the spontaneity to it that I like to see. That's my dog there in the background. For a good 12 years, he followed me everywhere. And for instance, this was just a picture I was getting ready to take of these dancers at this performance space where I lived in Ann Arbor. And Wilbur walks across the floor just in time, of course. So that's how I got started. This is how we do it. Something like this just shows up. It looks interesting, but it looks to my eye even more interesting once I've already, developed the image. It just takes on this otherworldly look to it. It's nothing I particularly saw to this extent at the time. And this is not somebody about to squash a cat, but it may look like that, but I would never think of doing that. But I find it funny that it looks that way, and it is just this other composition. This is just another spontaneous moment at a wedding party. And I'm not sure if you all are cut off from on the far right side of this photograph is the word "B" on the awning, and that there is no way I would have seen that when I took the picture, but it's actually just a cropped word off of the sign. But the title of this one is forever to be called "B." And there. And then, so I moved to California, and I got there and I started expanding my photography horizons, and I picked up Super 8 filmmaking and thought, well, in time-lapse filmmaking, you can take a still image like this and go on for an hour and then play it back in 3 minutes. So this is essentially trying to do a still photograph and showing it as a film. The point is that I was aware of Andy Warhol doing a similar thing. He had one called Sleep, I think was the name of it. And it was a 5-hour film of a man sleeping, but you had to spend 5 hours watching this movie. And I thought that's ridiculous. I think 3 minutes is long enough. In fact, that's long enough. So I would also take still frames. I would choose 3 sequential frames that I think sort of encapsulated the 3-minute movie and did them as a series. I was always interested in this kind of series episode. Here's another momentous film of my dog getting a bath. And also while in California, not only did the process of color developing and printing become somewhat easier with some newly invented chemistry, but I felt like I was seeing color for the first time. So actually, this is another one of those magical pictures. I was taking a picture of these rocks at the foot of my street there where I lived. And right as I clicked the shutter, Wilbur shows up over the ledge and then backed away. So this only happened, there's maybe a half a second that dog was on the crest of that hill. Anyway, so there I was doing all that fun and interesting work. But after a few years of working in and carpentry and store as a store clerk in an art store, finally decided I need a job. I need a good job, a career. And I got very lucky and was hired by a retina specialist who taught me how to do fluorescein angiography, which fortunately back in the 80s when I started doing this, photography was still a complicated process for most people not well trained in it. I and a handful of other people were hired to do this kind of work because we knew about film and developers and shutter speeds and how to clean lenses. So anyway, I was hired by this retina specialist to photograph the retina. And let's see, I got my pointer here. So the retina is right here in the back part of the eye. And you look through this pupil here, you shine the camera through that little hole of the pupil, through the lens, and then onto the eye. And when I can capture with that camera is just this area of the retina. And that's where all the big activity is that gets all the ophthalmologists excited to see. And there's a picture of it. This is a normal eye. And it's of that same field of view looking at the optic nerve on the right. The central vision is straight ahead. It's a little darker because there's more pigment there. And you'll see there's no vessels there because they would get in the way of seeing. But that's where your central vision is. So that was I realized when I started doing this that I'm going to like this. I'm going to like this career. Just to give you a reference, this is an eye that's not so healthy. It's got a vascular occlusion, and that's why the patient was there being seen. But what I was really hired to do was not to just take pictures, but to do this diagnostic process that looks at the vasculature of the eye, looking at how this fluorescent solution goes through the vessels, lights up the eye, and you can see where the problem is. So I'll go through this sort of quickly. So you inject the dye, you can see the vessels coming in right here through the little arteries, and it fills it up. This is after just seconds. Few more seconds, starting to fill up. Nice, nice. Whoops, this is not filling up down here. Not so good. There's something wrong with this eye. This is about 5 minutes later, and there's just sort of a diffuse gathering of fluid there. This is about 10 minutes. Anyway, so this is essentially the sequence we look at: the color photograph, what it looks like in black and white, then the dye sequence. So I did this, and this stuck for 30 years. I had a great career. And why am I even talking about this, about Chebeague? I'll get to it. Just hang on to your seats. So what it was like looking at to this retina is like looking through a keyhole into the room. So you can look straight into the room, but if you want to see what's around outside here, it's hard to see. But if you take your camera and rotate it, instead of coming straight back, you come in from this angle like that, then you can see up here, which is like looking through the keyhole here. You turn the camera and look, oh, there's a TV in the room. Oh, well, that's because of the angle of the camera. So with that, ophthalmologists like to have these composite pictures made with a straight ahead photograph and these peripheral things, and you print it onto a color print, and then you cut them and match up all the lines and make it look as good as you can, and then rephotograph it and then send it off to a publisher for an article in a journal or something. So that was going on. But meanwhile, while that's going on, I'm doing this. So I was getting interested in panoramic imaging. It just came to my mind one day that I wanted to, always when I was younger, I always wanted to look at what's in front of me and what's in back of me. And I never thought of how to make that happen. But then one day the light bulb went on and I thought, panoramic photography. And so I started shooting that. And this was when I would shoot in film. This was on color film, scan it, and then process it and put it together in the new Photoshop program that made it easier to put pictures together. And so this was an example of one 360-degree panorama where from here to here, it's one revolution. There. So that tied into work where one day a friend showed me this composite he had made of 92 images over here that he had photographed of this person, took 92 pictures, and he had made this cut and paste assemblage of it. And I said, hey, why don't you send me your slides? I'll scan them and make a digital composite. So I did. I took a week off of work. I didn't get paid to do this, but I did this. I took a week's vacation, and it took at least 40 hours, maybe 60. Who knows? Probably double that. I don't know. It took hours because I had the state-of-the-art Macintosh from 1992 or whenever this was, 1995. Most of it took forever to process these. Anyway, so when this came out, it was a big deal in ophthalmology. No doctors had ever seen this before. And so whoopie-doo. So anyway, I started doing a lot of them. So there's a lot, I just made a whole collection of these things that are published. And then I started teaching other people how to do it. And then now everybody does it. But fortunately, they also came up with automated software. So instead of that first one taking me a week on my own time, the software came along where one of these could be put together in just a matter of not even minutes, 2 minutes, one or 2 minutes. And it would do a better job because you have to line up all these vessels and get all that stuff lined up. So there. So this is what it looks like to take all these pictures, all these different views like that. And then I'll show you how the composite's made. There was a straight ahead. And then we start adding pictures, and it's just like this. And it's like doing a panorama. What do you know? So I was doing this during the daytime and going home and doing my own work at night. And I never really, and then also you could do it in fluorescein. So this is the angiogram. You do the same thing and put them all together, and you have a composite in color and black and white. And it's that was a good thing. So meanwhile, I'm doing my panoramic images. This is that same picture at the Lexington Barbecue Festival in North Carolina. And I realized when I was going around, another light bulb went off or whatever it does. I thought, well, if I keep going, I can go. Nobody says I can't go around a second time. So I did. And then I realized I have a time-lapse panorama. So I was thinking, okay, I'm looking at essentially once you pass 360 and go to 361 degrees, you've entered the time dimension. So now you're looking at two separate periods of time here, and this being the central area. And you can just see by looking at this central area that, things have changed. Here's another one from Pilot Mountain. This is in the fall and in the winter in North Carolina. And you can sort of tell it's in North Carolina because fall on the left, they're wearing t-shirts. And on the right, it's so cold, the guy has to put his hands in his pockets. But what's interesting here is I was able to hide the change here in the tree. So this side of the tree is, that side of the tree is fall, and that side, the other side is winter. So that was a discovery. Then I moved back to Ann Arbor, Michigan, worked there for a good long time, but they had the Ann Arbor Art Fair. I was just playing with this to all levels of what can you do? So this was the art fair during the day, and at night they would close everything up so it would be secure, and then the fair would go the next day. So I did this panorama of day and night. And you can, if you could see closely, you'd see the lights coming on the building from the similar thing. Then, why go around horizontally? You can go vertical. So I started doing vertical panoramas, and it helped to have something interesting to look at up there other than just more blue sky. So having a tree canopy was one of the first ways. And then this is a bench along the Huron River where I walked to work every day. This is during the summer. Well, here's another vertical panorama. And then I was walking by in winter and went, wow, the sky is the same exact color blue. So I put the two together, and then I had a time-lapse vertical panorama. And technically speaking, my feet are supposed to be there, but Photoshop lets you make them go away. So, but there. This was one thing I tried maybe twice. This was the only pan around where I tried to do a spherical view of looking around all 360 degrees like you're standing inside a ball. It doesn't work. I wouldn't recommend it. This one took a long time. This worked, I think, somewhat because the trees, I could hide a lot of imperfections in the branches and just make it work. Other ones were not anywhere near as successful as this one, such as it is. So that did that. So then I'm showing you all these because we're going to get to Chebeague very soon. So I got into sequentials. This is on my walkway to work, just looking at this railroad bridge every day, the same spot, and just selected images. I was interested in how the view changed at the same time of day. Here's a log throughout the year, and there's a view down the river throughout the year. And but then there's Chebeague. And so I started coming here in 2000 for the summer, a couple of weeks, and was able to take a handful of pictures in the summer of the island and things like this. And then I had this idea, well, what's different from Chebeague than Michigan? So Michigan has the Great Lakes, which is wonderful, but Chebeague is on the Atlantic Ocean, which has tides. So I realized I could do high tide and low tide and just show the difference there. So this was the first one I did, looking out at, it's actually, I'm standing on the sandbar between Great Chebeague and Little Chebeague, and they're on 2 different days. And fortunately, I didn't know at the time, because I waded out there up to my chest deep in water, that there are strong currents there. I shouldn't have been there, but naivete is a good thing sometimes. But I haven't gone out there again. I haven't repeated this picture. So this was the first tide. You can almost call it a time lapse tide panorama. So then I went with that one, and I started doing a bunch of these. So looking at time lapse, and I was interested. You could, the limits. It's unlimited. It's limitless where you could go with all this. And I decided I'm going to stick with two because I want to show duality of things. So so this is a duality of this is Sandy Point in the fog. I'm in a kayak at this point, and then Sandy Point, same perspective, but at sunrise on a clear day. And then here's the same kind of spot, but this is a sunrise and a sunset. And just to orient you, this is 360 degrees, so this is in the east, and the sun is setting in the west, which is in the middle there. And yeah, and here's another high tide and low tide. This is of Johnson Cove from a kayak. Actually, not in the low tide. I'm standing on firm ground. I had to sit in a kayak to do the bottom one. I was standing there. And then I got Jenny and I moved out here in 2013, or moved to nearby to Boston. So I was able to come up throughout the year, started shooting in the wintertime, which is wonderful. And this is another sunrise and sunset view from the Jenks Landing, from Jenks Road. Here's another kayak view of Johnson Cove. So a lot of my pictures are mostly from my neighborhood, which is Johnson Cove and Coleman Cove, and a few other places when I get there. But mostly I'm really interested in how these landscapes change over time. And I do like other places, but what I like about Johnson Cove is it's a large expanse of land when the tide goes out. So it's a challenging landscape to do the panoramics with, and that's why I keep going there. So here's Johnson Cove at low tide, sunrise and sunset. I just have been doing a lot of these, and so there's a lot of repetition. They all don't come out, and once in a while they do, and that's a good day. But I still really enjoy going out and photographing. I'm sort of in my element. I'm most alive when I'm out there photographing, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This one is 6 months apart. So this is Deer Point at sunset. And you can tell it helps dispel any notions that it's not true that the earth revolves around the sun, that the sun is here in the wintertime and it's way over here in summertime, and it does traverse the horizon, and it proves the theory of science. Here's a complicated combination. This is Johnson Cove at just after sunrise, or at the same time of day, same time of sunrise. In summertime, high tide, and low tide in winter. At the same, not time of day, but same time of sun elevation. And here's another one out at the Stone Pier with different times and different boats, different ferries, but essentially looking at the two situations that way. So in a nutshell, this is how I put these things together. So now I've come up with a formula for how to assemble these pictures. I shoot 8 across on the top and then 8 across on the bottom like this. And before the software got to be so good, it would take me 3 or 4 days to stitch these all together, get that all stitched and overlap and match up and do more. And, it's good entertainment, but it's tiresome. Now there's automatic software, again, for people who work in landscapes such as I, and it can do this in a couple of minutes, which is far better than I could do, and it's also more accurate. So that was a great relief to find that. So this is pretty much how it's all done for me now. is with this automated software. It's some kind of artificial intelligence, but I'm not sure exactly. So a lot of these I started to produce. And these are all singular images. And sometimes I like how they come out singularly, and sometimes I want to make a comparison, or just something something has to happen for the landscape to work, whether it's lighting or whatever. Here's another one. So I'm going to be showing a bunch of pictures. So if anybody has anything to say, I don't know if this works on Zoom, but go ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question. I'll see if I can answer it. But I'm just going to show a lot of pictures. So this is also a panorama. This is about maybe 6 photographs. The camera's looking down and looking up, but in my mind, instead of going 360 degrees, it really felt better as this rectangle. So this is a rare rectangle panorama. And here is just another singular panorama. Yeah, I think here I'm standing in the water. This is Coleman Cove. There's no current though. And this was just, I don't know how this happened. This is just, the lighting was fantastic, and I got the camera and I was there, and it just sort of worked as this picture of fall. And then I also have been doing vertical panoramas on Chebeague. This was an early one with a very strange wide angle lens, but this is of Coleman Cove, and it's essentially you're looking ahead and then looking behind you with the sky overhead. This is not a 360 vertical, but it's essentially a 180 vertical, let's call it, where I'm looking high up at the sky and then right down to where my toes are without the toes being in it. So this is boat, sand, and snow. And there's nothing like a tree in the winter on Chebeague. And these vertical panoramas often make these trees look a lot bigger than, like this one. This is on Little Chebeague. I had done this a few years ago, and I think I was over there last summer, walked over there. Where's that tree? I haven't seen it in a while. It's a small tree. It's not so big, but this sort of creates this huge, I mean, I had the sense of this huge canopy when I took it, and that's how I remembered it. But it's really, fairly normal size, not a small tree, but it's not a giant. And so normally I find that the verticals are sort of harder to get to work. This one I thought worked because I like the sky, the way the sky has a lot going on, and it sort of echoes what's going on with the road, the tracks in the road being overhead and being below, and this creates a strange balance. This was a sequence I did a few years ago out at Bennett's Cove, and I was interested in the pond, the freshwater pond on the left there, and the ocean and Bennett's Cove on the right. And I created this composition, set up this view, this 360-degree view, and went back at various times throughout about 1.5 years and captured just different seasons in this sequence. And fortunately enough, the punt was there the whole time, and mostly that was the main thing. That punt never moved, or if it was, it came back. So I did a bunch of these, and this is sort of a sample of various compositions of looking at those things. So after doing that, I came up with another idea, was to take the panorama, and one of a thought I had was I like to have the panorama surround the viewer with the sense that the landscape is all around you. And when you're looking at a flat print, you're looking at one 360-degree view of the image. But what I've done here is put one view on top and then flip it. So what is essentially easy to mark here, the sun is on either side, is now the sun in the middle. So what's here is here. And the impression I'm working on here is, especially with using the light source, is that here we're looking at what is being lit up, and here we're looking at what is the light, where is the light coming from, and to create the sort of enveloping feeling. And did a number of these. This surrounded panoramas, I call them. And this is out at the Hook at sunset. So you can see the sun just lighting up the Great Chebeague. Here's not a sunny day. And here's Sandy Point. So just once in a while, as we all know, all of you know, how gorgeous the light can get around here. And it's just ridiculous. And I don't know, can look out the window. It's like, I should be out there photographing. Oh my God. You got to live your life. But, when you can get out there with the camera and the light's great and you got a picture, oftentimes I'll wake up get up at the sunrise and I'll go out there and there's nothing special about the sunrise. It just sort of bleh, bleh, but you do that enough times, you get lucky and you get something. Well, look here, this is a sunset at the same general area. And this is out in Johnson Cove where the tide really sort of comes in and really transforms the landforms out there. I always find that fascinating. It's not so fascinating down at the Hook where it's transforming the landforms in not a good way. But here is, this is a sunrise. Another sunrise. The sunset. And that's a sunset out at Deer Point. I think this was on New Year's Eve or something. It was cold out there. Sometimes the weather is not so beautiful here, but this is a good dreary winter day. Here's another one. Sometimes the light just does that to the snow. This is the kind of day we want to forget. Here's this is from a few years ago. This is one you really want to forget. It's not all here. It's the blizzard. I was trying to capture the snow falling, but just to lighten it up. Oh yeah, we do get good weather around here. We're back to August here. So there is greenery and life goes on. But still here, I'm really trying to show how the light is on the sides and the subject is in the middle. It's another summer view. And sitting in a kayak. Which, by the way, isn't so easy because I have to sit in the kayak and make the kayak turn at the same time. Those I have to assemble by hand because the automatic software isn't smart enough to figure out these mismatched frames that don't line up. So that still requires a person like me or anybody to do it. And back to there. So those are the surrounded panoramas and the time-lapse panoramas and just the plain old single panoramas. So going back to the past years ago, before I even knew Chebeague existed, back in the old days, pre-2000, I lived in North Carolina. And I was at this county fair, and there was this row of pigs in their pig pens. I thought, how do I capture that in a panorama? Because I was doing panoramas. I can't go around because the pen is too long. So I walked down and stood in front of each pen and took a photograph, brought it back and put it in Photoshop and just lined them up. I said, oh, this is not a panorama. It's a panolateral going laterally down the cages. And since they all sort of had repetitive vanishing points, it kind of worked. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, it turns out that doesn't always work on any sort of complex elevation view because there's too much vanishing point going on. I mean, you can do it, but it's very confusing. Here we go. Here's a closer up of them put together. So that was the first panelateral I did, and I thought of a word for it, panelateral. And then years later, when I lived in Cambridge, the Cambridge Arts Council asked me, because I had already done some long panoramas for them on another project, they had this problem where they wanted to dress up this construction fence where they were building the new elementary school. It's a 500-foot long fence. I thought, oh yeah, I did a panelateral once. I think this will work. I can go down the Charles River in a kayak. So I did. And they paid for it, which is even better. So I got in the kayak and I mounted the camera on the side, paddled down the river, about a 5-mile stretch, and put it all together. Had it printed by a vendor who prints these things for, ballparks and everything, but they printed this thing up and it was on this mesh material and it went down the whole length of the street there for 500 feet. And it was up for 2 years, which was great. It was in this sort of mesh material. And still, I think to this day, you can look up the word panelateral. And the only reference to the word panelateral is the Boston Globe had a small article about my installation here. So you can Google it if you want, and you'll see this in the Globe. And that's it. And then a few years later, got to do this on Chebeague. So during the first year of the pandemic, well, before that, I think 2 years before, I had gone around the island in a boat and photographed the whole perimeter of the island. And then we used that as a fundraiser at the rec center to put the whole perimeter of the shoreline of Chebeague on the tennis court fence, which was Sue Hale's great idea. Thank you very much. And so I had a place to put this thing. So this was essentially all the way around the island. And this was a 240-foot panorama. And this was printed on sort of a non-mesh material. So it was somewhat vulnerable to wind. So it wasn't up for very long for fear it might tear the fence down or worse. So anyway, I'm telling you about all of these complex kinds of processes I've been doing. And I do all that and it's interesting and I like it, but then I get tired of it. I get tired of like all that complexity to it. And I was pining for going back to the good old days of simple photography where I just take a picture and I'm not really like thinking lugging equipment or anything. I'm just sort of responding to a moment in time, like the good old days back in the 70s. So I started using this new little lens that does 180-degree field of view all in one picture. It's like genius. That was wonderful. All right. I don't have to do any Photoshop. I just take the picture and there it is. What an idea. So I've been doing that for the last couple of years now, just taking a single view straight ahead. And these are all 180-degree fields of view. But what I've really enjoyed doing with these is looking out at mostly the coves and how they create that circular pattern. The lens itself creates sort of a circular image, but working with the cove, they sort of circle together and create this sense of space from that. So this is Coleman Cove. So I have a bunch of these of Coleman. And I just feel like over the years, I'm going to have a collection of these coves and these spots on the island. And I'm not sure how they're all fit together other than showing just a biography of the land as we've lived here. Here's one. Foggy day. I think that's a sunset picture. Johnson Cove. And then here's out of Bennett's Cove. Here's Hamilton Beach. And here is the hook, the boathouse out of the hook. This one was from fairly recently, and there's different views of that little pond of water there. Oh, and here's the recent flooding out there. This is a few months ago. There's back in Johnson Cove, G's Fish House. And then sometimes I can use this lens and not work with that circular frame and just get it to work with the curvature of the water line and create these other shapes like that, like this, and hide the curves altogether. And this is it's like that. There's Deer Point. Another Deer Point. To my eye, you can't tell this is a 180-degree field of view, but it is. Okay. It's back at the hook. And so this is my last slide here. This is actually another process. This is actually not even of Chebeague. This is of, I think it's Bates Island. And I'm using a super long telephoto lens. And I've made a composite of about 3 images to create this sea and sky zoomed in photograph. And maybe that's what I'll do for the next 2 years. I'm not sure. So that's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions or discussions or that you have. See, I can unshare. There. Okay.
I have a question, actually. Jason, how are you doing?
Oh, hi.
I know at the turn of the last century and into the 30s and 40s and 50s, there were actual panoramic cameras that were used for commemorative purposes and things like that. Did you ever wind up using any of those cameras?
I didn't, but I knew it. That was the Kodak circuit camera.
Right.
And it was a camera that mechanically rotated the film, or the lens rotated around the film. And I always heard of that, and I never got my hands on one. But that to me, that would make life easy. I mean, just to get a single image. But one thing I really enjoyed, especially in the early days of Photoshop and having to piece the pictures together, especially in a crowd of people. I didn't have examples to show you, but I have one in New Orleans where it's just this crowd of people. And I just really love putting people together, from individual frames side by side and creating this sort of new peopled landscape.
Right.
But yeah, I was very familiar with that technology, and it was amazing how, that was quite a technical accomplishment back then, as well as just how popular a concept that panoramic imaging was even back then.
Yeah.
And it seems to have gotten back in favor. I don't know how these cycles work, but it sort of made a comeback, so to speak, as far as imaging goes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was thinking, Richard, this is John Howard, that you make kind of light of the physical effort. Like at one point you said, I just sort of strapped the camera to the kayak. I mean, I have to stop and think about all the actual physical labor you do do you ever use tripods, or do you just use high speed, or how does that get accomplished?
Yeah, let's see. The kayak is the ones I've done around Chebeague are just handheld. That's the sort of the best way to do it. But the one going down the Charles River, that was mounted on a post, and yeah, that took some figuring. I spent about 2 weeks trying to figure that one out before I did it. And a lot of the earlier panoramas I used to handhold, just because I was a handhold kind of photographer. I didn't like having to use a tripod. It was inconvenient and it was not spontaneous and blah, blah, blah. And after years of not hand holding it, I finally decided to, maybe a tripod would make things easier. So about 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, I started using a tripod. I lug it out there, but the lugging of it, it's not that heavy. And setting it up, it creates a sort of space while I'm setting it up. And it just makes it so much easier to assemble the montage later with something that has reliable points on it. But yeah, if you wanted to, you could look at some of my old panoramic, some of the first frames, and they're all over the place, as far as alignment. I mean, I tried my best. Trying as hard as I could. It was really hard to make it perfect enough. So yeah, there is some lugging involved. Yeah. Hi.
Richard, I'm so spellbound by your photographs and gasping while I'm watching. But when I'm looking at some of your favorite masterpieces, what percentage of one of those images is being there at the right time in the right place for the light, and then stitching it all together on your computer? Like what percentage of each of these pieces is computer and being in the right place at the right time and actually taking the pictures? It's just feels like so many pieces have to come together for one of those images.
Yeah, there, like you said, that's a great question. There are a lot of components, and I like to keep the element of surprise and play here. I mean, to me, I like just going out there. Okay, maybe today's a good sunrise. Maybe the sun is high in the sky. That's a terrible time to go take photographs, but maybe it'll work. I mean, you just sort of do things anyway, because I want to go out and take pictures. The sun is terrible, but I'm going to try it. And sometimes it works out. And I like to work that way. I like to work with that bit of child play. I don't know what it is, but just sort of trying things out. But yeah, it's not a high failure rate. I mean, but I take a lot more than what you see. Maybe these are about, from any one period a week, I might use, 10% might come out as they look good. The lighting's good. The way I've been doing this so much, but being able to predict how the panorama is going to affect the composition, I'm getting a better handle on it. But sometimes you think this is going to be great and it's boring. It comes out boring. So you got to have more than one to make this work. And that's, did that answer all your questions?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
What a joy to see what you do.
Thank you.
Richard,
Yeah.
would this have been possible with film like we used to have? And if so, how much would that have cost you?
Oh, in today's dollar is a fortune. But so in the old days, and people have done this, they would cut and paste like what I did in ophthalmology, but you would take a series of still frame photographs, print them out, and overlap and paste them together. And there's a number of famous pieces that are from people who have worked that way. But you're essentially getting this, assembled montage physically. But that would have been the only other way, other than the circuit camera, which is a camera that does it all in one shot. That's 360. And then there were other cameras that had come out in the 70s and 80s and other that did a super wide, like 120, 130 degrees, a wide lux camera. And they would do it in a single frame. And with the lens would rotate around the film. And so you get a long strip of film. Instead of the frame being like this, there we go. So the frame being like that, on the film, it would be like that. And there's your panorama.
Thank you.
Richard?
Yes. Hi.
Thank you so much. It's an amazing collection. I always like to see the originals, of course, but tonight they came across very clearly and they're amazingly interesting. And I wanted to ask you if the ophthalmic experience you had earlier,
Mhm.
how much influence did it have on your later works?
I think it's interesting. I never overlapped the two. Like I never made art out of the ophthalmic images, but I think as it got me to be more, it increased my skill level just as a photographer. I mean, what I enjoyed about ophthalmic photography was the mechanics of it. You know, I knew how to do it. I was good at fixing cameras and getting film to work and all that. But I also enjoyed the patience. So it was, for me, it was a good career to have where I was helping people and doing something useful. And but the technical demands were a good training ground. It's always good to stay sharp, and it kept my ideas going. I'm not sure which came first, the panoramic landscape or the panoramic retinal photograph. I think the panoramic landscape came first, but just the idea of doing just working on both, you know, most of the day from day until I went to bed, I was working on both processes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Well, okay.
Richard, what's your next favorite imagination that you would do?
Wow. I don't know yet. I'll let you know.
This is Jenny,
I'm-
your wife, and I just
Yeah,
wanted
maybe
to,
she knows.
well, no, you had done this movie underwater because you put this waterproof camera on Johnson Cove
Yeah.
and then put it on a post, and we went home and came back the next day, and the tide had come in, and so the camera was taking the film of the seaweed underwater, which I thought was really fun.
Oh, thanks.
And I just really enjoy watching your creative process and your ever-present curiosity to just see, I wonder if this will work. And I hope you do some more of that.
Yeah.
Bill Jackson, were you going to say something?
Oh, was that me?
Yeah, I thought you raised your hand or something.
Hi, Bill Danielson. Richard, I just wonder how many hours a week or hours a day you spend on your photography now?
It comes and goes. I mean, sometimes I don't spend any time, but then I'll spend, you know, big chunks of the day for weeks at a time just working on something because I'm motivated to, or whatever. I don't know how it goes, but yeah, I mean, on the average, you know, I spend 2 or 3 days. I mean, it all depends. I mean, I have studio time where I'm going over old photographs and trying to assemble them and figure out what works together, either as a panoramic or as a group of images, how to keep them looking at relationships between the images. So yeah, I got a lot to keep me busy.
It sounds like a full-time job still.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. The pay's good too.
He still has time to play bass too.
Yeah.
Play
It was a
guitar.
great presentation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's great. All right.
Any more questions for Richard? All right, well,
There, turn off.
thank you, Richard, for a beautiful presentation of your artistic photography, sure to become lessons in the history of Chebeague. Sincere thanks to all of you who joined us this evening. Please join us next month on Zoom at 7 p.m. on March 27th, when Alex Todd, 10th generation fisherman and chairman of the board of directors of the Maine Coast Fishermen's Association, and Alan Tracy, president of Vessel Services in Portland and appointed at-large member of the New England Fishery Management Council, discuss Maine fisheries, past, present, and future. Thank you, stay well, and hope to see you in March.
Hey.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Richard.
And thank you, Richard,
Ah,
again and
you're
again
welcome.
and again.
Glad to do it.
Thank you, Richard.